Now let's take a look at relative clauses. And before we look at some examples, let's just talk a little bit about the idea of relative clauses. Well, the first thing is that a clause is something, it's a group of words which has a subject and a verb. So, for example, a sentence can be a clause, but a lot of the time a clause is part of a longer sentence. When we talk about a relative clause refers to another part of the sentence. Often it's a noun it refers to, and usually we put the relative clause or relative pronoun beside what it refers to. So let's go and look at some examples. And here we have two pictures. The first one is a car and the second one is a man sitting at a window. So let's just talk a little bit about the first picture. And this is, well, the first thing we can say is that this is an old car, and this just describes it. Do the relative clause or relative pronoun here, we can change the information. So now this is an old car, but it's a car I used to drive. So we combine the information and we say this is an old car which or that I used to drive. If you here, this is actually my neighbor and he's sitting here looking out his window. And we can also add extra information to this, is that this is my neighbor who lives next door. There are other neighbors near me, but this is the neighbor who or that lives next door to me. And now we have some more examples. We can see here there's a picture of a church, and then this is the inside of a church, and it looks like it's a wedding or somebody is getting married. So our information here is we're saying, yes, this is the church. Okay, it's just a church. And then when we add the extra information using the pronoun, this is the church where my friend got married. So where in this case refers to the place. In our second example here, we have my grandma. This is my grandma. And we can add extra information about her. There's a camera beside her. So what we can say is, this is my grandma whose hobby is photography. Her hobby is photography. So these are two more examples. And let's just look at the different types of pronouns that we use. When we think about these pronouns, there are 5 major groups. We think about a person, a thing, a location, time, or possession. And these are the pronouns that we use. For a person, we use who or that. Both are fine. For a thing, we use which or that. Location is where, time is when, and possession is whose. We don't use the word whom very often in English now because it's extremely formal. But one place when we do use whom is when it follows a preposition, and we have some examples here: to, with, from, by. We can also say that it is very formal. And if we look at our example here, where we are using a relative pronoun, the sentence is quite formal: the man to whom I sold my car. Another way to say this, in a more common and informal way, is to put the preposition at the end of the sentence. So our sentence is now the man who or that I sold my car to. So it's not necessary for us to use whom, except in certain situations. Sometimes as well, we don't use the pronoun, especially in speaking. So let's just look a little bit at that. When we're talking about the subject, we always use the pronoun. Our example sentence here is, the man who told us about the hotel was very helpful. If we take out the pronoun, the sentence is completely different. The man told us about the hotel. It's actually not a correct sentence. But when we're talking about an object, we can leave it out. So in our example sentence here is this the house which or that you bought, or simply, is this the house you bought? And this is extremely common when people are speaking.